I remember the first day I joined was the day Rahul Yadav was fired. This was like the news in 2015 in the startup world in India.
How does the timeline work for startups in general?
Most venture capital backed startups in their early stages, in their first 5 years, would not be profitable. So if I'm burning 2 crores a month and I have 48 crores in the bank, then it means that after 24 months I will not have the money to sustain. And that's where like the clock starts ticking.
When does this turn out to be profitable that there is no requirement of a next round?
Good question. I think for us,
How do you reach to a burn rate number or a value for a burn rate? Like,
तो जो मेरे पहले 6 से 9 महीने का खर्चा है टीम का, which is roughly 2-3 crores for every market that I launch in.
you need to spend 2-3 crores on every new market that you enter into.
Most of it is for the team.
But how do you find or source your house? That which house do you want to onboard at Truva?
What is your vision of where you want to take Rishabraj in the next like 20-30 years?
At this point, we are handling 12 projects where scale of those projects are 30 stories, 5 towers, 7 towers, all 40 stories, 50 stories. If in a period of 3 to 5 years timeline, we are able to achieve a working pattern where things can work without our involvement, will be a huge achievement.
Yeah, I think that if you find purpose in your work, I think you're already like halfway there.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the podcast. And today here we are with Puneet, who is from IIT Bombay and initially has worked for a few years in various organizations, moving on to an organization where he was one of the co-founding members of Ion Energy, and then took an exit from that and founded his own company, which is Truva. So today's podcast is a very different one because normally the podcast which I do are heavily focused on real estate, but I feel there will be a very equal weightage today on startup and real estate. And Truva is a real estate company which sells and buys home with advantage of today's online tools and the infrastructure and the organization that you have built. And honestly, a very interesting space and a gap that you have found, Puneet, and wish you the most success in this particular space that you're building. So would like to welcome you today for this podcast and thank you for the opportunity as well.
Thanks so much, Krish, for having me. Very excited to be here. I've seen a lot of your content online. It's one of the few types of content that I really enjoy. Otherwise, I really like to like stay as far away from social media as possible. So really glad to be here and looking forward to having this conversation, getting to know more about you and share more about myself.
No, looking forward. So I think so. We'll jump across whatever conversation we are going through, but it's been a habit to start with a person's journey from the very start, which is education. And I believe till date, today people dream of getting into IIT, IIMs, and somewhat that elevates a person's whole journey in their career by few years. Because if someone is a graduate from NMIMS or if someone is a graduate from any normal local college, their initial packages, if they are looking out for a job or looking out to work somewhere, would be ranging from 3 LPA to 10, 12 LPA. But directly, someone from IIT, IIM gets a jump of 20, 30, 40, which you'll know better. So, firstly, what was there that is required to get into an IIT or an IIM? I believe you will might be having some exposure to what it
Yeah,
requires to get into an IIM.
yeah. My brother is from IIT and I am both. So, so I've seen that journey also.
How being into an IIT changed your life?
I think maybe let me start with the how. And I think almost all of that credit goes to like single-handedly goes to my mom. Um, Growing up, I was told that there's like just one thing that I'm supposed to do, which is like get good marks. And it was not just about marks. I think like she brought on a lot of curiosity in my mind about things in general. She made me love uh studying. And so I became very nerdy as a child. I think maybe that is what it takes to sort of do well in some of these exams. But I think ever since I was a small kid, my brother, I have an elder brother, 4 years elder, he got into IIT as well. So I had sort of seen that journey of what it takes. And right from when I was, I mean, eight or ninth, I just knew that there was this exam and that one of the, and in fact, like it was painted, while I know that to not be true today, and we'll talk more about that, but I was told that if I do well in this one exam, I'll be set for life. And so that is what I did. I studied really hard, and and that is essentially the only thing I think that it takes to get into an IIT, to like just be very consistent and study really hard. The good thing that was that I really also enjoyed studying. So
Studying really hard means like putting in like 10, 12-hour study days every single day for how many months, or what was the scenario with you?
yeah, so I think it is a lot more about consistency with most things, right? Like if you want to become fitter, you don't like go to gym for 4 hours a day and then for 1 month. You don't. That's not how you build a body. You build a great body by going to the gym and like having a good diet consistently for a couple of years, right? And so it's just very similar. Like I don't think that I studied more than like 6 8 hours a day ever, but I was like super consistent. So I was like the very few days that I wasn't studying for 6 to 8 hours.
You were able to do other things other than studying during that time?
I had the time
You had the time.
and I could, but I did not end up doing a lot apart from studying because I don't think I had any other exposure.
Right, fair enough.
This is one thing that I knew how to do and I did, and then I also had a lot of free time. I played tons of video games in that time. So big fan of strategy games, like played a lot of Age of Empires, Rise of Nations. Still, I mean, before coming to the podcast, I was playing Total War. So I enjoy playing video games, and so that's essentially what I did.
And how was it being into IIT? Like, how did that groom you, or maybe sharpen you in what kind of different ways? Or is it just that you get into that and you are done? Like, because I'll justify the question. I came across someone who got into ISB, and he was 2 months into ISB, 23, 24-year old, and 2 months in, he has already landed a job. For 2 years later, when he'll be
Yeah.
done with his course, with about a package of about 40 LPA.
Yeah.
So whether or not he scores, he studies, or just gets passed across his course, he has somewhat decided his future 2 years down the line.
In that sense, I think undergrad is different from postgrad. Like, right? Like at least for me, money wasn't the reason personally that I went into IIT. Like I just really enjoyed physics. I enjoyed math, and I just wanted to do more of it. Um, and of course, like it came with a lot of like unfair advantages that I still, and like because of my badge, I still sort of get access to places that I wouldn't have otherwise. So of course there are those advantages. Um, but at least for me, that was not what the main goal was, and I think that is why maybe like an IIM is different from an IIT. When you enter an IIT, you're still very young. You are in that coming of age period where you're really like exploring the world, and I think that because when I went there, I was in a hostel. I was suddenly staying with friends 24/7, and I had no one telling me study, study, study. And for the last X years of my life, like studying was the main thing that I did. And suddenly I had like tons of freedom, very nice, smart, friendly people around me. Uh, and so I think those 5 years, and especially like the first 1 or 2 years at IT, were like the happiest years of my life. Um, Made a lot of friends. Uh, really learned how the world works. Um, is at least how the world inside an IIT works, because that was the world at that point. Yeah, IIT Bombay is a very closed sort of environment. It's a big campus. You have about 8,000, 10,000 students at campus, um, and you rarely go out. So that sort of becomes your world. You have everything inside campus. You have all the facilities that you will need. You will have your classrooms, your laboratories, your playgrounds, your gyms. Like everything is just inside. So you barely need to go outside, and so that becomes your world. And it was amazing, yeah. Like I have a lot of regret of not making the most of all of that infrastructure that was available. Like in hindsight, I should have like continued studying hard while I was at IIT. I wasn't. I was like just again playing video games, playing football, hanging out with friends. That was what I was doing most of my 5 years. Um, the I think the one or two interesting things that I did spend time on were I was part of this group called IIT Bombay Racing, where we built electric race cars. It's called the Formula Student Competition. So we built these electric race cars that look like an F1 car, and we would compete in this competition called Formula Student, which is in UK. So we every year we would make an electric car, go to the Silverstone circuit in UK and race there. Never really won, but I think that at least at the time we were like easily the best Indian team in the competition. And that was I think that kind of exposure is what the real value of getting into an IIT is. Unfortunately, in other not so good colleges in India, you don't get access to that kind of exposure. So if this was like 2011, 2012, like people had barely heard about electric cars, and we were like making electric cars every year and racing them. And so that was super fun. As part of the team, I was leading that team, about like 40, 50 team members. We had like 1 year we would have to get the budget ourselves. We would have about like a 1 crore budget every year. So getting the funding ourselves, then planning out the entire program management of it, then actually doing the engineering and then doing the racing. So a lot of fun, a lot of exposure, and I think like that's where I learned a lot of what I still go back to when I'm building.
I think so. That is more or less like an operating a business in itself of product
Absolutely.
development and making things happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that is the single most productive thing that I did at IT. In fact, I think before, let's say, Truva, if someone asked me like, what has been your best work so far, I would have like gone back to my college time and said that when I was building this electric race.
No, I think so. Getting an exposure to a sum of 1 crore in that particular age and together working with a team of 40, 45 people in itself is a very big exposure.
Yeah,
I think so. No textbook can ever replace that, or even at times, just listening to a podcast also won't get you that.
yeah,
And getting that at that particular age period is a lot to
yeah.
elevate in terms of yourself in various areas.
Yeah, मुझे याद है जब मैं कॉलेज में था and we were doing these projects. I remember telling myself कि यार I don't know when is the next time I will get an opportunity to lead a team of 50 IITians.
50
Yeah,
IITians,
it is not just a team of any 50 people. Like all these 50 people are really smart, really
like
hardworking.
next to impossible, I
And
feel.
and अब तक उसके बाद अब तक मैं वहाँ तक नहीं पहुँचा हूँ. Hopefully we'll get there soon with Truva. But that's definitely one of a lifetime opportunity, and really,
Having a
really glad I
50
got.
IITians team is super strong, super strong.
But at the same time, also we believe that like iodine is super overrated. So I think while they are like they have raw intelligence, I think they're really bad at worldly matters, really bad at EQ, um, really bad at knowing how the practicality of the world works. So it's not all great, but if you're building a tech product, if you're building technology, then I think it's all good.
Good place to start with.
Yeah.
Post IIT, where did you land your placement, or what was your decision?
So, I think after having done this and after having led this team uh, of people who are building this electric race car, I just I always felt like I don't want to take up a traditional job because I really wanted to have the ownership. of the work I was doing. So always, I think even at that point, always knew that I wanted to start something of my own. Tried a bunch of ideas while I was still at college. Nothing really stuck. Um, and so the next best thing was to join a startup. And so I was at housing.com. That was the place I went to work for just after college. Um, very, very short stint. In fact, a little traumatic actually, because I remember the first day I joined was the day Rahul Yadav was fired. And I mean, this was like the news in 2015 in the startup world in India. The ecosystem was still very raw. And I think Rahul Yadav was like the most famous entrepreneur in India at the time, because he was, I mean, IIT Bombay, 2 years out of college, he was building this amazing business called housing.com. Every investor wanted to invest, every person wanted to join the company. But it sort of all crashed. And I think one of the lowest points was when my first day, I had nothing to do with it. But I remember this town hall where the entire company was there. This is about like 1,000, 2,000 people. And it was announced that he's been let go. And then the investors came in and gave reasons as to why all of this was happening. So did not get off to a really good start career-wise. Uh, in fact, that was a very, very short stint for me. And there were layoffs throughout the company. I was laid off, and joined Haptic immediately after that. Uh, that's where I started meeting a lot of like people that I'm still really connected with. Some of my really good mentors, and just like very lucky to have met. So Akrit, for example, Akhil, for example, at Haptic, and that's where I think my real professional journey began. Like, would love to know a little bit about how you uh, what was that moment for you when you decided that you want to dedicate your uh, career to your family business? Because I know I mean, a lot of my friends have family businesses, really good ones. But I've seen two, three things happening. I think a lot of times they start doing something of their own or take up a job and join the business way later. And sometimes they just like show no interest. But like for you, what was the deciding factor?
I do feel at some point of times that I should have worked somewhere, and that working somewhere would have to be of a certain stature and certain exposure level, definitely. But what made me land here is not by choice, full fledgedly, I believe. Like, I feel it was with time only that this happened by itself. To explain that, COVID had happened. Dad had started working from home, and his meetings all were online. He used to be in the living room only doing his all meetings and everything.
How?
I think so. 11th grade was when I didn't give my final exam. 12th, I didn't give my final exam, and it was during this period. So maybe 16 years old. And everybody was in the house, had no option to go out. And it was a proper lockdown period for about a year or how much ever time. And however, open and closing was going was happening during that time. I was subconsciously or unconsciously was listening to conversations of my dad of work, and there was nothing more interesting happening in my life. Like, we couldn't go down or go anywhere other than meeting my cousins or going for a night over in the neighboring building. Nothing more than that was possible, and that eventually got me interested in somehow, uh, subconsciously. And during that period, dad started an association in the real estate industry, where they started hosting some webinars where they were inviting industry leaders for speaking about their journey and everything. And during that point of time, just months back in my 10th summer vacation, I had done a graphic designing course. So I started providing support to that association for preparing marketing creatives. for sending it out to various invitees for that webinars. And he started making me, I also started getting interested in sitting and attending those webinars beside him. And that got me somewhere aligned with what is real estate industry. And once things started getting opening up in the real world, and first year, so I had an accident before I got into NMIMS for my undergrad, and I had a 6 months bed rest. So while again everything opened up, my new life for a new university was starting up. I was still at my home for more 6 months than the whole world. And when this new phase was starting of my undergrad, I was late by 6 months, and people already had their friend groups, their whole, because 6 months later getting into a friend circle or anything would be difficult. So 6 months later, I joined my university. I was attending things online as much as possible, or whatever that time setup was, and couldn't get into a good, nice friends circle also. So college was very okay for me. Like that phase wasn't so college phase for me, and that made me get more better exposure to the business because I was enjoying more that than the college. The reason was not that I was interested in the business that I was not enjoying college, but actually I was not enjoying college because I couldn't find that set of friends or anything which I would love. Uh, I would have loved during that time, and started attending the office post college hours. In the first year, college was in the evening hours, 12 to 5, and from second year onwards, it was morning college, 7 to 12. So by 1 o'clock, I used to land up into the office, and those periods I was just shadowing dad, listening to him, understanding the business, which was very interesting. I was loving that, and side by side, started taking up small roles which were not highly impactful or anything, but was somewhere helping the business or in some or other way. And I had some skin in the game, like was very minuscule, but some skin in the game. And post that, my undergrad got finished, and had a decision to make whether I want to go for my post grad or not. And our business growth was also happening in that particular period, was so extensive and aggressive that it was a good thing to witness and experience also. And exposure of being into the management and having a bird's eye view on how business is growing and expanding is another level of experience which you wouldn't want to miss. And that was also making a huge decision make that was coming into a decision making factor whether I should go and pursue my masters or not. And eventually, I think so, a huge credit goes to counselor, where he just like filled up my first installment of the course and told my dad कि इसको भेजना ही है, मतलब ये मत छीनो इससे 1 साल. And it was like 1 week. I used to say कि पापा मैं जा रहा हूँ लंदन. एंड डैड यूज्ड टू से अपने ये सारे बड़े-बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स सब लाइव होने वाले हैं, चालू होने वाले हैं, ये बहुत अच्छा देखने का टाइम पीरियड है। पॉडकास्ट चल रहा था, तो वो पॉडकास्ट का रैपो वगैरह सिंक जो स्मूथ चल रहा है, जो जितना वहाँ पर, और मैं इंडिया के जो बेस्ट रियल एस्टेट लीडर्स हैं, उनके सामने बैठ के और एक्सपोज़र मिल रहा है, तो उनकी लाइफ जर्नीज़ जानने मिल रही है, वो लोग कैसे काम कर रहे हैं, ऑफ़िस के बाहर लोगों का क्या विज़न है। अपन जो काम कर रहे हैं, वो अपने को पता ही है। वो पता ही रहेगा। Getting exposure outside your office of how people are doing their business in the same industry was another gold mine of knowledge. And that also taught a lot. So, and 1 week I was saying that I'm going, another week dad was like, ठीक है चला जा लंदन, and I was like, नहीं नहीं जाना चाहिए, यहाँ पर बहुत मज़ा आ रहा है और ये सिंक रैपो नहीं टूट जाएगा. Because college life at the end, away from your family in a student accommodation in another city, is full fun.
Yeah.
I believe it takes another level of person's thought process and maturity to completely utilize the 24 hours, all 7 days, by doing something productive. And it was the other way around where I enjoyed my life. Like, it was a year where completely different exposure, where I'm doing nothing, waking up and sleeping at times of what college life is. and somewhat also found happiness in other areas of life. Before that, like, my happiness as my work was what my thought process was becoming, and that phase of 9 months taught me that in what other way also you can live life, because 20 years never lived without family for more than week or 10 days also. So was another good experience, and having so much exposure before that undergrad, before my postgrad, of how this business works, and already having some things in my plate that I was taking care, didn't have a choice or something that if I go and do some another job or start working somewhere else, there is any way possible that I'll have this growth in my life which I can get over here. So
Yeah.
I think so. It was a no-brainer to join here, knowing that I'm aware that this is no way possible that I can get this amount of growth anywhere else.
So combination of COVID, the accident, um, is what like aligned you to your work and your purpose.
Yeah, and I feel having a value addition in the business also makes you aware that you are bringing value to the table, you are helping something happen, gives you more of a reason as well to continue in the same place.
Yeah, and in fact, I say like to every teenager out there, I think that you should just make sure that you spend at least a couple of years of your life away from family in a hostel in student accommodation with very limited resources but lot of time and lot of energy. So you should not have any money, but you should have a lot of time and a lot of energy.
I think so that was the case
And
with me
yeah,
in London. Like, being a part of a family business and how we have been brought up, like, I'm having two siblings also, it's till date not like we are having a limit to what kind of money we spend or how we live our lives till date. And London was something like that, and it taught a lot more. Enjoyed 100%, but an international trip in 30,000 rupees with your flights, stay, food, everything was kind of exposure that I got. That taught me money management. Here, there is a surname, there is a father's name attached to my name, which gets things easily available or accessible in various areas in my life. Getting an exposure to life without a father's name and a surname is another thing. Like, I tried to get a sales associate or salesperson job at a clothing store. That also couldn't land up. Couldn't land that also in a place where nobody knows you. That gave an idea about how difficult life is for everyone, where there is nothing backing you up from the very start.
yeah, and that is really important to sort of be like know what the real world is like, be able to see outside of like the shell that we live in. Awesome. And like, did you like even while you were in London, did you always know you're gonna come back and rejoin work with your dad?
Yes, I think so. Dad was alone in the business. Our growth was happening. There is enough plate or enough things to take care in the business, and he himself, like, did speak that he requires support, and it's always best to have family members in the business. Like, having exposure to various family businesses in our country, if there are three brothers or how many ever family members are there, one person can take a vacation at his requirement. And dad has not been able to take vacations in his early years for a good amount of years, for even a week's time or 10 days time. And there is always benefit, like, at day zero you don't have to take stress about trust, you don't have to take stress about a particular individual whom you can rely on for anything, for everything, for a lifetime. It completely changes so many things about your life, because 80-90% of your life is working. in the times that you are awake. So somewhat family was also like that, already being into other businesses. So dad started this 15 years ago. Before that, he was into textiles. So my chachu, bade papa are still into textiles business. We are having manufacturing plants. So everyone was doing a business. They also eventually had like joined our grandfather in some way, and they all these three brothers have like did 100x 1000x work to build such areas or their name or brand in the industry. So I think so difficult to beat that exposure of any way. Difficult to beat that exposure by doing something else somewhere else.
Mm. And now that you're doing this, uh, what is your vision of where you want to take Rishabraj? I think you have like a very very solid foundation. In fact, I think that I already sort of see some changes over the last few years of how like the brand is becoming more and more of a luxury and a premium or super premium brand. Like, what is your vision of where you want to take this in the next like 20, 30 years?
I think so too early to say about 10, 20 years down the line what is going to happen, considering in uh, last 5 years, in 2019 or 20, 6, 7 years ago, our capability was 4, 5 projects, 9 story, 15 story. To today, I think so we are handling at this point we are handling 12 projects, where scale of those projects are 30 stories, 2 towers, coming up with projects in next 1, 2 years of timeline, launching few in a matter of months timeline, where these projects are at the scale of 2 towers, 60 floors, 5 towers, 7 towers, all 40 story, 50 stories. So I think so for at least next 3 to 5 years, we are having enough on the plate, which we have to execute and align systems, processes, teams who can readily work on those things on an automated mode. Today, Rishavraj is a very high promoter driven company where dad, me are heavily involved into decision making. If in a period of 3 to 5 years timeline, we are able to achieve a working pattern where things can work without our involvement, will be a huge achievement. And when we relieve ourselves from this bandwidth of daily operations, daily decision making, we can get time to strategize on real business development of the business. And if as as fast as possible we can achieve that, will eventually lead us to taking much more bigger calls and decisions regarding what kind of projects we want to do, whether we want to enter into a different asset class. Because today we are building residential, commercial, greenfield and brownfield being redevelopment part. But if we are able to sort this whole part on an automated mode, we can think about building a data center, about an education center, which I really want to do, about doing a development in another city, plotted land development. We are building a software here in house where we are having an IT team of 20 people, whether we want to take that software outside in the market and create a revenue stream from that. So 10, 20 years down the line is a lot that can be achieved. But in the next recent years, at least, I believe thought would be about relieving the promoters, w- changing the scenario of a promoter, like heavily focused on promoter driven company to a highly professionally managed company.
Got it, got it. I think this is interesting because it just like this is also the kind of goal we have at Truva between the three founders. Um, every time we feel like we are too involved in the day to day, it means that we are not getting enough time to think about how to take the business to the next level. And so we are like constantly trying to hire people, put people in place so that like we can get out of the day to day and then like go to the next level. And then when that happens, we find ourselves back into the day to day because now the company is bigger, the day to day is bigger,
Right.
and so we are
No,
spending
I
more
think
and
so.
more.
I would want to deep down a lot into how you think and how you manage your time and everything. Before that, how Truva got founded? What was that thing that gave you the idea about Truva? I think so. For everyone who is listening or watching also right now, we can start with what is Truva, then followed by how Truva came into a thought as well.
Yeah. So Truva is a 2.5-year-old startup out of Mumbai. We are a full stack home resale platform. What that means is, we if you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy a house, buy a secondary house, then you can come to us and we can help you buy or sell. Um, this is different from listing platforms where you only see listings, and like all of us know that those listing platforms don't really work. Um, Essentially, what happens on those platforms is that you see a lot of ads, and then you click on the contact button and you expect to get in touch with the owner of a property or an agent that really has that property. But what ends up happening is that you realize that was a fake listing, and then your process is entirely offline. Um, so I'll maybe talk about how, like why Truva, and how we ended up here. So this is back in 22. Um, I had some equity, I had some capital that I got from selling off some of my stake in my previous startup. Decided to invest in a residential house, and um, till that point, I had a lot of experience investing in equity, in public markets. और मुझे लगा कि it'll be very similar. I'll sort of look at an asset, I'll have a lot of data, I'll do some analysis, and then I'll go and buy. What ended up happening was that there was almost no information. I remember at a point I was like literally going online and asking people for consultation where I could pay per hour. I was like, I'll pay you on an hourly basis, but please tell me something about this real estate market or that estate market. And वो like मिल नहीं रहा था. Eventually ended up going through the normal route of working with brokers and developers, and really struggled in that entire journey. Also, I think ended up making a not so great decision with the purchase. And so while I was coming out of that journey, I felt like, I mean, I've always worked in startups, and I felt like in the last 10 years, how the country, how India buys their groceries or food, or how we buy our fashion, is very, very different from how we did that 10 years ago. But if you look at how real estate worked in India, it was like pretty much the same over the last 10, 20, 30 years, and not much had changed. Um, so at Truva, we are on a mission to simplify home buying and selling. Um, we started with the resale market. The way this works is, um, if you are a seller who wants to sell your house, then we do a valuation for your house. We give you a guaranteed offer, and we also give you a 1% token advance. Once we agree on the price of the house, then we spend our own money into modernizing the house. So we're building a very premium developer like experience for resale. So we spend our own money there, and then we sell. We market the house. We sell it. We work with all channel partners. We work with all listing platforms. So very omni channel in our distribution. Um, so that's what Truva is. We've sold about 100 houses now in the last 2 years, and selling about uh, 15 houses a month today.
I think so. 102 years, you have achieved compounding effect to reaching right now 15 per month, and that will be approximately like 180 homes a year
Yeah.
path right now.
Yes, our goal for this year, 2026, is what we call one home a day. So in December, we want to be at a point where we are selling a house every day.
Wow. So how big is your team today?
Today we are about 75 people
I think so. Last time we had met, it was around 55, 60. So which function has expanded, or is it all over?
across all functions. I think we are hiring about 10 to 15 people a month, and we will continue doing that because we really closed our fundraise recently. We'll continue expanding till we get to about 130, 140 people. And I think that is when we'll stop hiring and we'll start consolidating. Uh,
So what is going to be the biggest function, highest manpower area?
um, I think the biggest would end up being sales for us. And when I say sales, so internally we call it the seller experience teams and the buyer experience teams. We don't like calling these teams sales teams because, I mean, just going back to why we started because today real estate in India comes with a certain baggage of not being transparent, very opaque, not having the best experience. And so we want to change that, and we're really, really focused on customer experience. So, because we're doing resale, we have a team that is speaking to sellers and getting to a point where sellers and us and we agree on a commercial contract for selling their house. So that is the seller experience team. And then the buyer experience team is the team that is actually selling the house to the buyers that come visit these houses.
Can say your personal journey through this whole experience when you invested your first initial capital out of your exit landed you to give you an idea about your biggest venture today.
Yeah, I think that was I think the only good thing that came out of that investment.
And you said you did lose a little bit in that whole scenario,
Yeah.
eventually giving you a lot, much more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's funny, right? When you end up in a bad situation, also like for you, like COVID and then the accident, like that is what aligned you towards your work. And I think like when you end up in a bad situation, you start like really thinking hard about things
Whatever
and like
happens, happens
yeah,
for a reason.
yeah, and yeah, that's how Truva really came about.
So, one thing that you think is very important when you are starting out a business or a startup in your eyes, it's highly software IT implemented startup. And I believe selling involves today a lot of online coverage in the space that you are working, along with the offline distribution that you are building with your sales team across various partners. You can define your core areas while you were developing your business, or maybe a journey of how you started. Like, you got an idea, you're having a particular amount of capital, but how you did you execute?
Yeah. Um, I think one of the best pieces of advice I've seen about starting up is that I think starting up should be less about ideas and less about like this is the business that I want to build, and it should be more about solving a problem. And that's what we've been trying to do right from the very beginning. My personal journey for me highlighted the problem of how painful it can be buying a house if you don't have the right kind of information and the right kind of support. And we really wanted to solve that problem for home buyers. Everything else about the business is just like how do we enable ourselves to solve that problem in the best way possible. Um, and so, for example, when someone is buying a house, right? Like one of the first problems we realized was you don't have access to, especially in resale, to just what the layout of the house is, what are the areas of the house, what is because like even areas are of different types. Right? There's mofa, there is rera, there is built up, there is super built up, and like it's all super confusing for a home buyer. Um, and so then like how do we solve that problem? Uh, this one of the second problems that we saw was when a buyer visits a house. Sometimes there are tenants inside the house. The buyer doesn't even get to see the house. The buyer might be in a house that fits their requirements perfectly, but the buyer might not realize it because a dog is barking at the buyer end, and so like you are not able to think at that moment. So every single thing that we do is just always linked to solving problems of our customers, and that's I think the best advice that I've ever got. And then we just build from there. So like the business model came about because we wanted to be able to stage houses because we want the houses to look nice. Because if a house looks nice, then a buyer can really imagine their lives inside the house. So just like step by step building and solving problems, and that's how the entire business came about.
You do a complete refurbishing of the house.
Hmm.
You do a proper shoot. You do a proper um, it. You do whatever is required to give the customer a proper idea about how the house is going to look like.
Yeah.
Right. So 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 how much energy is required to do that every time? How much money is required to do that every time? Plus, I believe you give the raw how you have received the flat to the customer with a few good changes which are mandatorily required. But the loose furniture
Right.
is what you take back or what.
We take back. So, uh, staging is what we call it. Is basically three things. Number one is we inspect the house and we check for any structural issues, any seepage issues, any pest issues like termites, and we fix all of those
For permanent, for good.
for good. Yeah.
Right.
And if this is something that cannot be fixed, then we don't even take the house
Perfect.
because then that house doesn't deserve to be bought. The second is we really modernize the house. What I mean by that is a lot of the buildings that are 5, 10, 15 years old, they will have really old types of lighting. They'll have tube lights or they'll have window ACs that don't really look good. So we remove all of that and we put in ceiling lights, we put in split ACs so that when a buyer walks into the house, it feels like a modern house.
So that is for good or not?
That is also for good.
So you provide the AC as well, you
Yeah,
provide the lights
yeah,
as well.
yeah. Um, And then the third thing which we take back is the movable furniture. On the goal of putting in the movable furniture is to enable buyers to actually imagine their lives. So, for example, if there's a family, then they want to know where will the study table be, which room can be the kids' room, and so it
So
just helps all of that.
furniture is over there till the flat is sold.
Yes,
You don't move it in and out just for a shoot, but it's actually
it's
there till the
it's
time the
there
flat
till the
isn't sold.
flat is sold. And one of the biggest differences that we've seen, right? So in any visit and any resale typical visit, a buyer would spend about 5 minutes inside the house.
That's it.
For a typical resale house, because tenants are there, dogs are barking at you, some rooms are closed. So it's not really a pleasant experience. But we really wanted to make this like, something like you would do as a builder and like give a really premium experience. So for Truva houses, buyers spend on an average 45 minutes inside the house. They sit on the sofa, we provide drinks, we make sure the temperature is good, the house is smelling of coffee. So the buyer can really stay and experience the house before deciding whether they like it or not.
As in how you are scaling up, your number of transactions will go up. So how much cost is the soft furniture, loose furniture to you?
So the reason it is not a lot is because we take it out and then we use the same furniture in
But
other
I feel
houses.
you might have came across at least one situation where your flat hasn't sold for a month or more.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so our average time to sell today is about 35 days,
35 days.
which means that like more than half of the houses take, slightly more than 30 days. And so the furniture stays there.
So today you are selling at a rate of about 15 a month.
Yes.
15 a month. So you're having 15 sets of furnitures across 15 sites or even more.
So today we have about 30 sets of furniture. Some of it is in the warehouse, some of it is in the houses, some of it is just buffer. So today we have about 30 sets of furniture that we have. Um, the I mean, one thing we've realized is that like just interiors in general, right from like lights, ACs to furniture, like these are not on MRP usually, right? So if I'm buying a piece of furniture, if I was a customer or like a normal buyer, I would get it at X. But as Truva, because I'm buying in bulk and like this is repeat business, I get it at X by 3 or X by 4. So there's just a huge sort of cost saving there. And one set of furniture usually lasts us around 10 to 15 houses. And so because of that, the cost per house for a set of furniture is not more than 25,000 rupees.
For sale.
Yeah, because it gets amortized over, let's say, 15 houses.
So that's 3 lakhs of cost.
3-4 lakhs of, yeah, that's how much I spend on the movable
Very
furniture.
reasonable.
Yeah, and like we've realized that you have so many good vendors. A lot of the furniture it just comes from Jodhpur. We get it manufactured. The other good thing is that this is mostly for presentation purposes. So our furniture doesn't need to be very functional, and that also helps us save costs.
Right. Interesting. So what is the scale right now that once you cross a particular number in number of flats you're selling per month, that every time you move from 15 a month to 30 a month, you'll have to add a particular number of set of furniture.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how does that math work?
Yeah, it is. In fact, furniture is the least of our concerns today because furniture, we just place an order, it comes, right? I think the bigger problems are if the warehouse is at its limit, then we have to go looking for another warehouse.
So where is your warehouse?
Today, our warehouse is on JBLR next to Oberoi Splendor.
Got it.
This is already our second warehouse, and we're looking for a
The
new
third
one.
one.
Yeah. Um,
Storage is a
Storage, I'm going from like top to like bottom to top of like the problems that we usually try to solve when we are scaling up. The other problem is mm, when we are entering a new market, every market has its own nuances. So, and the kind of data that we need to do our valuations. So we have built this in-house engine that we call True IQ. The kind of data that we need really means that we have to understand every market in a lot of detail. So for every market, so for example, we are launching in Andheri West as we speak. And for Andheri West, there is a team of 4 people that will just spend 2 months gathering data about the Andheri market. And the kind of data that we gather is that we look at each and every building. We map each and every unit in that building. So we get to a point where you just enter an address and you will know उस घर से view क्या है, what is the layout of the house, what is the vastu of the house. You will also get an automated valuation of that house. And so that is one of the biggest things that we have to do every time we expand. Um, because valuation is important, right? Sellers really care about it. We can't lowball sellers because like we are all about customer experience, and lowballing for a house is the worst experience someone can get. And at the same time, we can't bid very high because then we will not be able to sell, and that doesn't help anyone. So valuation is one of the toughest challenges. And then the probably the most difficult is just every time I enter a new market, I have to open up a new office. I have to build a new sales team that works from that office because in real estate you have to be close to your inventory. Which is as a builder, you were selling maybe like 120 units in one location. But if I'm selling 120 units, they are in 10 different locations, and that brings in certain operational complexity that we're still figuring out how to solve best.
right now you're operating in which areas?
We are operating in the central line, on the central line from Vikhroli to Bhandup. Uh, then we are in Powai, and then on the western line, Jogeshwari, Goregaon, and we are now launching in Andheri. And very soon we'll also be in BKC, Bandra West. That should be sometime in April, May.
What does it take to go and attract or start a new location?
In Mumbai today, there are about 90,000 resale transactions every year. Um, and if I talk about the top 4 cities in India, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi NCR, and Mumbai, these combined would have about 2 lakh resale transactions every year. Um, and that means that the resale market is a huge market. At the same time, there is absolutely no organized player in the market. All of this resale today is being done by the unorganized segment. And what we've realized is that everyone is really struggling. Like buyers are struggling to buy in resale because you don't see good inventory. It's very difficult to find inventory. Sellers are struggling to sell in markets that we are operating in. It takes up to 9 months to sell a house in resale. And even brokers are struggling because they do all the hard work of actually getting a deal done. And then once the deal is done, they have to really like run behind buyers and sellers to get their brokerage. So, like this entire ecosystem seems broken, which is essentially what we set out to fix. This is really the problem that we are trying to solve at the moment. So, the vision is to really get to a point where we become the largest residential player in India, both primary and secondary combined. For example, Godrej today sells houses worth about 20,000 crores a year. DLF would do slightly more. We think that we can get to a point between the top 4 5 cities if we are really able to scale this. We can get to a point where we're doing about 40 50,000 crores worth of sales every year, and that is really the vision for the next 5 6 years.
This is going to be resale and plus new inventory that comes into the market.
So today we are very focused on ready to move in houses. We don't do under construction. The reason we don't do that is because we believe there is very little value add we can bring in. In an under construction property, it's all about the builder delivering good quality and on time. And there's not much we can do there except like getting the deal done. But we do resale and we also do ready to move in where the building is ready and there are some units left, the OC is there, because there again we can then come in, really look at the house, look at the inventory and present the house uh, with all transparency, with all honesty, and in a very presentable way to enable buyers to make the right decision. And so combination of resale plus ready to move in
So
primary.
today, how much is resale? How much is ready to move in?
Today, 80% is resale and 20% is ready to move in primary. Yeah.
Do you see that proportion to be the same?
I think it will remain pretty much the same. I think it also really depends on market cycles. I think when demand is slightly lower, we might do more ready to move in because then it gets more and more difficult for builders to sell, and I think we can really help there. When demand is really high, everything really sells, and then it's resale is what we'll probably do more of.
You have any timeline of how you want to be all over Bombay, having a network across Bombay in all locations to moving on to different cities, or it will be about being in the major key locations of Bombay, which do really well compared to some minor, not minor, but other locations of Bombay, and starting up another vertical in another city also side by side.
Right. So the idea is to be in most areas in Mumbai in the next 12 to 18 months. And also launch in Bangalore in the next 6 to 9 months. So I think same time next year we'll probably be in 2 cities, Mumbai, Bangalore. Should have covered at least 75% of Mumbai, and we should have covered like a few areas in Bangalore. Um, I think that as a VC backed business, you really are, you only have two outcomes. You either build a really large business, you end up being a unicorn or close, or you end up shutting down. Like those are the only two outcomes that exist. um I think as a lifestyle business, you have slightly more freedom of growing slightly slowly and compounding slowly. But as a VC backed business, I think you're really always sprinting towards uh, more revenue, more expansion, and 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 to be honest, like I really love that. I think that sort of fits perfectly with my personal ambition of like building a really big business really fast. Um, but yeah, uh, for a startup that is VC backed, you don't really have this option of a middle path where you're growing slowly and you're trying to become profitable at. मतलब अगर मैं if I'm making a profit of uh, like 40-50 crores a year, then that's not really a good business for my investors and also for me. And so, what we really need to aim for is getting to a 200-300 crore profit a year business over the next few years.
How does the timeline work for startups in general?
I think for that, you have to like understand the VC math. So, if you're, I mean, there are different types of startups, but if you're a venture capital backed startup, uh, how venture capital really works is you uh, like they might invest in 10 deals, 9 of them will go to zero, but the one that does work out will give them 1000x return. And so what they're really looking for is that if you do well, you should get to 1000x return. And they are okay with you not uh, being sustainable in the long run. Right, so it's the all or nothing option. uh, and and the time frame for that is, then essentially, so you've raised a bunch of money and now you are expanding. Most venture capital backed startups in their early stages, in their first 5 years, would not be profitable. And so you are always on this race against time where you have a certain runway and you have to get to a certain point in order to be able to raise your next round. If you don't get to that point in that time, then you are not able to raise and you die. And this time is usually about a couple of years every time you raise. So we just closed our fundraise, which means that we have about 2 years to get to our next raise. And in those 2 years, there is a certain scale that we need to be able to reach. And so that's how the clock is always ticking.
When was your first round?
This was in July of 2024.
July 2024. And almost after 18 months is
Yeah.
when you did your second round. So how was your first, what was the value of your first round?
We raised 25 crores at a 120 crore post valuation. Um, and the Series A happened at the Series A is a 61 crore round at a 288 crore post valuation.
As you mentioned, like you have to do all of this against a race with time, because if you time barred, then it becomes difficult to raise. That becomes an issue. Or
Yeah, the issue is just that, see, we are not profitable. So let's say we are, hypothetically, let's say we are burning about 1 crore a month. And as we start expanding, we would get to maybe burning 2 crores a month. So if I'm burning 2 crores a month and I have 48 crores in the bank, then it means that after 24 months, I will not have the money to sustain. So that means that in 2 years, i- uh, in, in 24 months, in 2 years, I need to raise another round. And that's where like the clock starts ticking, because you you have a certain runway and you need to be able to fly before the runway ends.
when does this turn out to be profitable that there is no requirement of an extra round?
Good question. I think for us, the next round is probably going to be the last round that we raise. I think that in the next 2 years we should already be profitable. And then it boils down to, how fast we want to grow. So if we want to continue growing at, let's say, 5x every year, then we will need another round. If we are happy with growing at a 2x ish or a 2.5x every year, then we probably don't need another round. But yeah, that's where hopefully, the next round is the only round. Yeah.
It is sick. So, what was your revenue during the July 2024 round, and your revenue during the, this was done in December, Jan?
So this round closed in November and December beginning.
So 18 months timeline. And what was your jump in revenue?
Our jump in revenue was roughly 9x in those 18 months. So when we raised the seed round, we were really just selling one house a month, and our revenue was about 10-15 lakhs a month. When we raised our Series A, we were doing about 1.5 crores a month. So between 9 to 10x in the last 18 months. Um, and in terms of, again, number of houses, selling 9 to 10, we're selling about one a month, selling about 10 a month now. So broadly across the board, we've grown 10x in the last 18 months.
And what do you look down to 24 months later?
I think very similar. We'll probably be 10x of where we are today. So want to be at a point where we're doing at least 10-15 crores a month in revenue, selling roughly 100 houses, if not more. And like I said, be in most places in Mumbai and also be present in Bangalore.
How do you reach to a burn rate number or a value for a burn rate? Like, is it highly dependent on, like, there's a reason to burn some money, and the reason is like expansion of team, or is it marketing, or what is the reason?
Right. So I think that is one of the most important decisions you make as a founder. Like where do you really invest your money in? For for us at least, we're very clear that don't want to spend a lot of money in just a lot of startups. Unfortunately, startups in India are known for like just giving out discounts, and a lot of people tell us कि आप तो startup हो तो why do you even need to make money on. मतलब a lot of sellers, a lot of buyers will tell us कि आपको पैसा क्यों बनाना है, आप तो startup हो. So they'll start asking for discounts because हम startup है. So a lot of startups burn a lot of money, but we are very serious about our unit economics. What I mean by that is that in every house that we acquire and sell, on an average, we want to make sure that we make a certain number that is sustainable for us in the long run. Um, and what that means is that we are not spending a lot of money on like discounting. We are not spending a lot of money in branding, marketing yet. There are broadly two places where we are spending money on. One is expansion. So what that means is every time we launch in a new market, we need to hire a certain team. We need to do the valuation, the mapping part of it. We need to build a certain tech. And for every market that we launch, it takes about 6 months to 9 months for us to be profitable in that market. तो जो मेरे पहले 6 से 9 महीने का खर्चा है टीम का, which is roughly 2-3 crores per every market that I launch in.
You need to spend 2-3 crores on every new market that you enter into.
Most of it is for the team. So matlab I'll get a team, I'll onboard them, I'll train them.
So what the team means, definitely on ground sales team. Apart from that,
Yeah, apart from that, I will buy the furniture. I'll make sure that there is a warehouse, there is the infrastructure available. Um, and like even if I hire an 8 to 10% team, um, plus the warehouse, the furniture, then it means that we end up spending about 2 to 3 crores.
and you end up spending this 2-3 crores in a period of 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to make up for that by doing that much amount of sales.
Yeah, and so I think month 9 onwards, we start becoming profitable in that micro market.
Any market right now not behaving not responding or behaving the same way your calculations are.
Yeah, so I mean, no market behaves how we expect it to behave, right? So I think that is, some markets behave better than what we expect, some markets behave worse than what we expect. So I think that out of the three broad clusters that we are in, two of them are doing better than expected, one of them is doing worse than expected. And I think it's all about understanding why more than actually, at this stage of the company, more than actually those markets working, what is important is we understand the reasons behind why they are working and why they are not working. because that understanding is what will help us in the next market. So we're still very much in the learning phase, and even if something is going better than expected, we're not usually happy. It's actually a sad thing for us because it means that we don't understand it really well, and then we spend time understanding it. And if things uh, work worse than we expected, then of course it means that we
Need
sort
to
of
move
do an
on to a
us
new chapter. No?
not before understanding why it didn't work.
But like, do you think that happening like once you are understanding the reason behind a particular market where the resale is not performing to your numbers, you might take a decision to move out?
We might absolutely.
But till date, no exposure to that.
We've not. I think that every market has had nuances, and that we've learned and we've been able to improve things at least, if not like make it a slam dunk. And so because like resale is happening, मतलब आप मुंबई में कहीं भी जाओ resale हो रहा है वहाँ पे. And so and because resale is happening, like we believe that if there are buyers, if there are sellers, Truva should be able to do something.
What are your learnings about resale market versus ready to move in market?
Resale and ready to move in are actually quite similar for in terms of the inventory that is available. So resale, maybe you have like a few units, you don't like have a lot of options. Similarly, ready to move in, you usually don't have a lot of options. I think what is different is that in resale, the transaction is happening between two strangers that don't know each other. Whereas in ready to move in, a transaction is happening between a professional setup, which is a builder, and a buyer. Um, and because in resale, the transaction is between two strangers, and it's almost like we think of resale as almost like a marriage. कि अभी दो लोग एंड दैट टू एन अरेंज मैरिज जहाँ पे लोग जानते नहीं है एक दूसरे को. सो अभी वो बायर एंड सेलर है, दे आर डूइंग वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट ट्रांजैक्शंस ऑफ देयर लाइफ. दे प्रोवाइडिंग लाइक 4 करोड़ का ट्रांजैक्शन है या 8 करोड़ का ट्रांजैक्शन है, बट दे कम विद देयर ओन सेट्स ऑफ nuances, quirks, and egos. And so like that mapping out well is slightly more challenging than ready to move in, जहाँ पे you have one professional setup, so one side is sorted because you really know them well and you have worked with them before.
I think so. I am aware about how do you find a seller, I mean a buyer, being on this area of functioning in this particular industry, about how does finding a seller is some process which I am aware about. But how do you find or source your house? That which house do you want to onboard at Truva?
Yeah, so the good thing is for us कि ना resale में घर बेचना बहुत tough है. तो sellers are really struggling and they're looking for alternatives. Today, roughly half of our houses are sourced through our channel partners, um, which means that they knew a seller wanted to sell, and they introduce us. We then pitch Truva, and the seller sort of signs with us. And roughly half of them are through direct channels, which is essentially referrals, word of mouth, and in some cases we are also on these in local groups on WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram, and तो वहाँ से sellers reach out to us, plus the website of course. तो रीसेल में क्या होता है कि हर मार्केट का डायनामिक थोड़ा अलग होता है कि इन सम मार्केट्स सप्लाई इज़ मोर, डिमांड इज़ लेस. इन सम मार्केट्स डिमांड इज़ मोर, सप्लाई इज़ लेस. तो जहाँ पे सप्लाई इज़ मोर, डिमांड इज़ लेस, वहाँ पे it's easier to get a seller because sellers are anyway like struggling so much. We see so many cases in which seller 2 साल से बेच रहा है, 3 साल से बेच रहा है, उसका घर बिक नहीं रहा है. एंड जहाँ पे डायनेमिक्स थोड़े उल्टे होते हैं, वहाँ पे सेलर के लिए थोड़ा इजी होता है, तो वहाँ पे गेटिंग अ बायर इज स्लाइटली मोर डिफिकल्ट. टुडे when we go meet a seller, um, I think going back to like the beginning of the conversation, ki this is I think the single biggest place or the single biggest advantage being from IIT Bombay has given me is that I am able to build instant trust with anyone because I am from a certain background. So, in fact, when we started, there was no reason for a seller to believe us and say, like, because we are not from real estate backgrounds, we are not brokers. And we were like, we give us exclusivity to sell your house, give us your keys, we will do your staging and we'll work inside the house, right? So, for a seller to trust someone with that is very difficult. And like they were at a point where every conversation started with me saying I am an IIT बॉम्बे ग्रेजुएट. तो जब मैं वो बोलता था लोगों को लगता था कि IIT बॉम्बे का है तो ये ठीक ठाक ही होगा, मतलब ये स्कैम नहीं करेगा हमें. So that really helped. So a lot of conversation with the seller is about building that trust. And then when we tell the seller about how we sell, it becomes a no-brainer because yeah, we are the fastest way to sell. We work with all channel partners in that area. So if seller might work with 3 brokers, 4 brokers, and we ask them a simple question: if you work with 4 brokers versus you work with 1,000 brokers, in which case your house will sell faster? And the second is if you're selling a house jahan pe it is staged, the interiors are done versus the house that is in
Same
your
conditions.
condition, which house will sell faster, which house will sell for more? And like these are obvious.
But do you say yes to every house that comes to you?
No, no, not at all. So, I think there are broadly 3 levels of checks. Level 1 is the legal paperwork. So we make sure that every house that we take is legally fully sorted because that is our promise to our buyers. To our buyers, we give them a lifetime guarantee on the title of the house that they're buying from us. So legal stuff has to be sorted. Second, we inspect the house for any seepage issues, any structural issues, and अगर वैसे कुछ problems है, then again we don't take the house. We realize that a lot of times there are problems like these, but 90% cases में वो fix हो सकता है. So जब fix हो सकता है तो हम fix करते हैं, and that is one of our biggest value propositions to the seller क्योंकि फिर हमारे बिना वो बेच ही नहीं पाते. The third is we look at we score every house that we see. So then this score is automatically generated through our intelligence platform. This score is based on कि वो बिल्डिंग कौन सी है, उस घर का वास्तु कैसा है, उस घर का व्यू कैसा है, उस घर का लेआउट कैसा है, कार पार्किंग है या नहीं है. And if the score is below a certain threshold, usually it means that the house will not be liked by buyers. And if we see that kind of house, then again we don't take it. क्योंकि जैसे I'll give you an example, like if you have a very bad vastu house on the ground floor या on the top floor, जहाँ and उस घर में parking नहीं है, so no buyer would like you'll have very few buyers for those, and so those are some of the kinds of houses we don't take.
And do you commit a timeline to your seller?
We commit 6 months on average. Sometimes it is more, sometimes it is less, depending on the score of the house. The score is really high, we are confident of selling it earlier, so we take lesser time. The score is lower, we take slightly more time.
Is there any particular ticket size house that you always work on, or is it's open if the layout, furniture, legal, whatever checks you are having, it's passed, and the house is of 1 crore or 10 crore, it's fine?
Today we are doing anything between 1.5 crore to 10 crores. We are happy to do higher ticket size also, avoiding going below 1.5 crore, at least for now, till we are in Mumbai. When we go to Bangalore, of course, the ticket sizes will change. Um, the reason is that I think that anything below 1.5 crore in Bombay becomes a house that in my opinion, doesn't have like very few basic things that every house should have. And so we try to avoid houses below 1.5 crores.
Fair enough. How does your week look like?
Weekends are usually about meeting customers. So I still like to spend enough time speaking to customers, both buyers, sellers. I also like to spend enough time meeting our channel partners. I think irrespective of how big we become, it will always be important to have some connect with the ground. So weekends are mostly around that. And in real estate, weekends are the busiest, right? So I'm guessing that even for you, with your launch, like weekends are probably busier than most days. Then I one day of the week for us, for the entire team, is just trainings, and I like taking a lot of those trainings. So on Thursday, from very early in the morning to late at night, I am just doing a lot of these catch ups and trainings with different parts of the team. Um, and I think that that's one of the best things that, or the most enjoyable things that for me in the week, because it helps me get connected with almost every team member at Truva. It helps me help them do better at what they are doing, and it also helps me get a lot of feedback of what their problems are, what their challenges are, and so that is like one full day of just trainings. Um, then I spend at least a day in the week for product work, which is what new products we want to build, both on the customer side, on the internal side. A lot of my week is about hiring. So as we are expanding the team, I make sure that I'm spending at least 15 hours a week doing interviews. So do speak to at least 8 to 10 people every week for hiring, and that pretty much sort of covers the entire week.
Interesting. Puneet, you're very calm, very subtle when it comes to coming to meet you, talk to you in person. Also, the experience that I have had. Just how do you think? How do you process various things? What do you want to achieve? Like just moving out from this startup conversation to wanting to know about your thought process and ways of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah, so I get that a lot, and I'm not sure if it is a bug or a feature. So it can be a feature in some cases, it can be a bug in some cases. Yeah, so I think that there were certain moments in my life where I had to really um, hide my emotions from coming out, and I had to like just focus on, I mean, especially when I was like studying for my IIT JE. Things were not great at home, and like I had to like just shut off all the noise and like really just focus on what I needed to do to clear the exam. And I think that that sort of experience ended up making me uh, what I am today, in the sense that if I am faced with any situation, I am just like always thinking like very, very logically and rationally. Uh, and the reason I say it may not always be a feature, it can be a bug at times, is because in some cases you really want to act on instinct, you really want to be emotional, especially in your personal life. I think there are a lot of cases where you should just act out of emotion and not like try to be very logical and practical. And so I think that professionally it's probably helpful, because I think irrespective of what is happening, I'm always able to like switch on my logical brain and like navigate through any sort of situations. But yeah, I think it boils down to some parts of my teenage where I had to like really shut off my emotions and just focus on what I needed to do, because apparently that was like the JE exam was the most important thing. I don't believe that to be true now, but I believed this to be true at the time, and so that is what I did.
Does give a head start. Like I think so. Like how it's still helping you acquire business by giving that trust to the sellers that Puneet is from IIT and this is our story.
Yeah, so professionally though, for sure, like I think that sometimes I wonder if if the goal of your life is to like become very successful, or if the goal of your life is to become very happy. And and so IIT definitely helps becoming more successful. I don't know if it helps becoming happier. Um, and I think that while uh, but when I remember this, when my brother was in eighth, my parents told him कि बस 8, 9, 10th important है, उसके बाद तो मजे ही मजे. And मुझे भी वही बोला. And then when you are in 10th, you're like 11, 12 तभी
I think
important
so
है.
8th or 10th सबसे happiest days थे life के.
हाँ, and मतलब you always just are setting the next target, right? तो 8, 9, 10 हो गया, तो 11, 12 इम्पोर्टेंट है, फिर मजे ही मजे है, क्योंकि जेई क्लियर कर लिया. फिर जेई क्लियर कर लिया तो अब बस कैंपस प्लेसमेंट हो जाए, फिर मजे ही मजे. एंड अभी स्टार्टअप कर रहे हैं तो बस सीड राउंड हो जाए, फिर मज़े ही मज़े, फिर सीरीज़ हो जाए, तो वो मज़े कभी आई हैव रियलाइज़्ड कि वो दैट इज़ अ मूविंग गोल पोस्ट, एंड आई थिंक दैट यू हैव टू रियली फाइंड हैप्पीनेस इन योर डे टू डे, इन योर वर्क, in your personal life. I don't think that achieving any goal can really give you peace or contentment. I think that it really has to be your day-to-day life. So, um, yeah, that's what I've learned, and I think उसमें maybe IIT इतना help नहीं करता है.
No, 100%. I think so. Talking about this particular thing about do you want to live a happy life or a successful life? At at this point of time, with a limited exposure and experience of things in the real business world, I do think there is a choice that has to be made that you cannot get both in a particular phase of your time.
Yeah,
There can be a switch where you have become successful and you can now dedicate time to be happy. And I hope there comes a time where that period is there in life.
are you happy, Krish?
I am happy. No, definitely enjoying, but I think so. Still, like you go through ups and downs, highs and lows when you are pursuing a goal. It cannot be that you are just happy 24/7 because you are in situations where you don't want to be. You are wanting to have conversations which you don't want to do. You have to, it cannot be like you make everyone happy and you move forward. Like sometimes you will have to let down some people because of the choices you want to make to move ahead and be successful.
I think that happiness is like very tangential to success. Like I think that you can be very successful and be happy. You can be very successful and be unhappy. Very independent things. I think that eventually I want to become great at both, where I like I'm able to do what it takes to become exceptionally successful, while I am able to do what it takes to be exceptionally happy.
But to clarify, I'm happy. Definitely, I am happy, but still deriving
Yeah,
happiness from things which are not related to career or
yeah.
work. I'm getting my happiness with work, with career, definitely there. But deriving happiness from other resources is what eventually the goal should be from relationships, from things where effort is low, where logic is less. I think so. That is where eventual or the final source of happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if you find purpose in your work, I think you're already like halfway there. And Baki, you'll figure out.
100%, 100% Puneet.
I think what really surprises me every time I speak to you is just how young you are. You come across as someone who's like so much wiser and mature. And like when I was 22, I had no purpose in life. And I mean, I do have some purpose now to a large extent, and that makes me feel super content about that specific about that is the work part of my life, and I think that's been a big game changer for me. And so I think the fact that you already have it at that age is absolutely amazing, and I'm
Uh,
really happy for you.
Means a lot, Puneet. Means a lot. I think so. I know good things about Truva, like in and out, and the journey that you have went through in a matter of 2.5 years in itself is a huge achievement, and very excited to see how this turns out in 2 years of timeline during the next round and post that being the main goal where you are profitable and you don't need to raise another round and Truva is across India reselling the maximum number of homes anyone has witnessed. That would be the wishes and dream that I would also want to see unfold, and really excited because honestly there are players in the market who are into this selling business like Square Yards, housing.com, Zapki, like who are somewhere into many other areas in real estate but not as a developer or not as a everyday mandate company which are purely into launching various projects for developers and then selling homes, which is again a different model of business. But the gap that you have found is something that really impresses, and it's difficult to find that gap.
Hmm. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for your good wishes. I am I am waiting for the day where we are able to sell a house in a Rishabraj building. I
I'm
think that
I'm
that
I'm
would
waiting
be.
for the time. I think so that is easily possible once you are here in the market where our projects are. And I think so you are there in Goregaon, but right now the projects in Goregaon are in the launching phase, and you do RTMI, which is like ready to move in, which where I think so these projects will be there in that phase maybe in 2 years down the line. But I wish we don't have anything left to sell. But I wish the sooner you launch in other areas where we have some kind of that inventory left, we can partner over there. But at the same point of time, I would wish, I don't know how much I'm true or right, but good amount of business of yours do come from resale.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I feel when it comes to RTMI, as you say, in resale, people just are having less sources for selling. But when it comes to RTMI, the sources for a developer also are a large amount. Like any so there are these professional mandate companies who come in professionally and sell it through a proper uh, channel, proper process that they have set. But along with that, you are competing with like enormous thousands of brokers also who come in, who are having a relation with the organization, promoter, director, or anyone in the whole organization. And they boost up the confidence of the developer that I'll get you this sold, because it doesn't matter to a broker uh, where he gets his business from, through a resale, through a fresh property, during an under construction, or be it a finished product as well. So your competition increases, I believe, during RTMI compared to resale.
Yeah.
And resale, at the end, for a seller, it comes down to the local broker only,
Yeah.
majorly. He doesn't have any such high
Right.
confidence, organized player like you at all. So I just wish the very best that your majority business comes from the resale, and RTMI still is 20%, adding value
Yeah.
to your business eventually, but not.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that resale is definitely a much bigger problem. Um, and and we're and I think that 80% of our business will always
Be resale.
be resale.
That's
That
nice.
will always be the main business. I think RTMI is only
An increase in your numbers,
yeah.
a more additional resource to have a less cost on your resale.
Yeah, it's if you're working in a market already and we have a bunch of inventory, then it
Exactly.
just becomes very easy for us to, sell a
Sell
few more.
more, few more homes, your costing goes down, your
Exactly.
manpower is more utilized,
Yeah.
optimized. So that is definitely will help you in your
Yeah.
numbers for sure. But I think so, as far as I'm aware, the gap that you are filling is something that can take Truva to heights.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think there are a lot like there are a couple of examples of like second generation real estate entrepreneurs really taking business to insanely big heights. I think there's Oberoi, there's Lodha, and I'm just super excited to see your journey, uh, where that goes. See you evolve as a person. See Rishabraj evolve as a brand. Just super excited to know you while you're still, sort of beginning. You're still like in your early stages. I just know that you're gonna have an exceptional path ahead, and I would love to like keep seeing you, keep watching how that journey takes you, and see you evolve and your world evolve, and I think that I'm gonna have fun watching it.
No, no, I'm really thank you for the compliment that you get. That was too kind. Thank you so much, Puneet. I think so. Will keep interacting with you and would love to do something someday with you. Definitely, the basic most thing is that when you launch in a market and we are having the kind of inventory that you want and yet that you can sell. So I think so. It's a matter of time that that will happen. Looking forward to that.
Yeah,
And eventually, how more other ways can be a part with you in your journey as well.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure we'll figure out ways.
100%. 100%.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I hope you are here till listening and watching. A lot to learn from you, Puneet.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah.